Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Peter Abraham. I am a registered nurse, currently working to be a death doula, but from a perspective have already been in that arena. We'll go over that more in a little bit. Um, my registered nursing experiences involves cardiology, geriatrics with long-term care and rehab, extensively in hospice. Predominantly, I'm a hospice and palliative care nurse. And I've been leaning into more and more being a death doula with RN concierge services. This channel talks about topics of death and dying, chronic illnesses that become terminal, hospice and palliative care, tips for hospice nurses, about my various books about hospice uh, to help hospice nurses, holistic nurses, as well as caregivers. And I will be working on probably either this weekend or Monday. I'll be starting a brand new book, my most extensive work ever, because all my other books typically are in the 12 chapter or less range. So I'm going to be doing a 22 chapter, at least for right now. It looks like it's going to be 22 chapters on how to become a death doula, including a sample business plan, marketing plan, elevator speeches, building a network, the whole kit and caboodle. And this does not certify you. I want to be that very clear. This is not the equivalent of going to a doula school. This is not the same thing, but it's going to give you directions on how to become certified and how to start and run your own business. And I'm doing this for multiple reasons, including I'm taking the journey and I'm looking for alternative economical routes. So some of us are not in a position to take an online course or go to an in-person school. And there's not, unlike nursing school, there's not a governing body. So there are the standards for certification. I don't know how to word it in the most positive light. It's like this school has this certification, that school has this certification, and the two people may have learned similar or not the same things. Who knows? There's no governing body to say we have uniformity for now. So I don't want to turn this into a whole, like, this is supposed to be a positive discussion. So I'm on that journey to become a doula, and I'm going to be writing a book, and down the road I'll share more on the book. I just wanted to make you aware that there will be a resource coming. April's almost over. I don't know if I can complete it in May, but there will be a resource coming down the road to provide more guidance and help for those of you who are like, gee, I want to do this, but every time I check out of school, it's just way too expensive. I have a heart to help people. How do I do this? And yet build the trust to say I'm certified. So in the link in the description of below, keep in mind I didn't write a single, I wrote the outline, but there's the National End of Life Alliance, allows you to become a member for $50. And they do what's called micro-credentialing, which is the same thing as certification, with a study guide. So you pay 50, make sure that you are on their member rolls. They said, they tell you this on their website, give them time to process you. Then apply to take the test for the end of life doula for $115. And then if you pass and have a study guide, you're now a certified end of life doula for $165. And then they have another certification if you want above and beyond that. That doesn't help you on the business side, and I'm not saying these replaces the online courses. I'll go more into that when you see the upcoming video. But before we go into showing you the presentation, a little bit of to-doist for in terms of how I work the planning, I do want to talk about gratitude. I encourage, in tonight's webinar, it was a 4-hour webinar about being a death doula. The presenter talked about part of her thing for Being resilient is forgiveness, which I am in agreement with her. I had trouble at the one point, but I kept my mouth zipped. I know I'm going to go on a rabbit trail when I say this. She's going to say, but did you do the best you can? And to ask the person you're forgiving that you do the best you can. I'm still working through that, because if the person who I did forgive, but if I were to ask, did you do the best you can? I know the answer is going to be yes, but if uh, it involved physical, various types of child abuse, that's not the best you can do. I forgive, but I have trouble with. Anyway, my thing on being resilient is gratitude. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. So what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for that I came up with a 22 chapter outline today that is extremely extensive for this book. I still have not written a chapter. I still have to design the cover. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that God willing, I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be going to a men's breakfast. And I'm grateful for the men that go to that. I was doing a lot of soul searching today, um, and I'm so grateful to God for the books, the people that are buying and reading my books. Between the people buying and reading my books, my wife's Social Security and her part-time job, we're making ends meet. We're not living in luxury, but I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. If you're buying my books, thank you. So without further ado, let me go over the presentation right afterwards. I'll have the briefest of outros as I can to respect your time. Before I take you through the death and dying presentation that I'm working on to present for free to the local community here in central Kentucky, probably at two different library branches, I did want to walk you through a bit of my organization, like how do I process things. So I love using technology when it makes sense. So I use Todoist. So this is Todoist, and this is just all about becoming a death doula. Is not every single task I've actually completed, a handful, but you can have main tasks, different subtasks, including due dates. When you set up due dates, you could also put deadlines as well, just to be reminders of that. And again, the drop downs come through. I'm checking with the one library tomorrow and building out the network. So it just allows you to keep track of things. And you could also say, like, here I have 35 different tasks that I put together for my process of becoming a death doula. I'm also working on a business where it'll be a combination of death doula plus RN concierge services. So that's on this side over here. My RN teachers, the coursework side. I'm not going to go through every one, but book writing, that's what I do the most, 255 tasks yet to complete, just a lot of organization. So let me go through, this is in Canva. So getting back to now the presentation, I'm going to go into present mode momentarily, but I did want to give you a look as to what does this look like inside of Canva. So you do have the Canva home screen here where you could have the different designs. These are the tools of the trade. My most recently released book, the ebook, the paperback cover, the hardback, cover, and Instagram, so on and so forth. So there's so much that Canva does allow you to do. I do have the pro version. I do believe it's very well worth the money for the pro. So when I actually go into the present, you're going to see things just slightly differently than this screen. I just want to take you through, if you were to create presentations in Canva, this is not a Canva course, but you can have, like, I have the logo from Compassion Crossing, text. I brought down these purple lines here that you see here, right here, and then over here. Those are just margins that you can drag over from the left and the right to just give you guides for how you want to align different text. So I ended up, my first draft was 15 different slides. I'm up to 18 slides as part of this presentation. I do have notes that I put in. That's one of the things I worked on today for my notes. When you go to print it out, that would be under File, Download. I ended up doing PDF for print because I'm going to have print copies. And then you can say I want to include the notes and so on. So it's just wonderful features out there. I don't make any money if you go and sign up for Canva, and you can use it for free. But without further ado, let me just walk you through this presentation. I'm not going to give you, it's a 90-minute presentation. I want to keep this short. So I'm not going to speak the presentation to you. There might be a future video, especially if you comment, hey, I'd like to hear your presentation. I don't mind doing that for you. It's going to be free in Central Kentucky. If I do put together courses as it relates to my journey to become a doula, I'm sharing a lot of this freely on Facebook. I'll probably say, here's the PDF for free, whether it be in courseware, however mechanism. I haven't worked through the mechanics yet. But in here, I can come, I want to present full screen and present. And let me move my face out of the way. So this is how it would look on a presentation, minus my picture here. That's just recording software. And so for any of you looking to become a death doula, one of the common themes that I've spent almost 4 hours, actually it was 4 hours this evening, with the 7th World Death Doula seminar done by Susan O'Brien. She did a very good job with the presentation, with the fine print that at the end of the presentation there was a call for signing up for her course, which is 3 certifications for. This is the catch-22. I do believe she has value for her 3 certifications, but if you signed up within a certain time frame, it's just under $3,000. And here, I wish we lived in a world of fine print. When you go to nursing school, whether it be an LPN school or an RN school, all of the schools in the United States of America, no matter what state, what city, there is a standard that the school has to meet for you to be able to go and take your boards. There's a governing body that the class, it's not that every class has to be the same, but certain material has to be covered at a certain level in order for you to go to get your boards. And you have to have so much of certain types of clinicals before you can take your boards. And when you take your boards, I took my boards in Pennsylvania, got endorsed in Kentucky. The boards in Pennsylvania, the boards in Kentucky, it's the same thing. Now, the way they run the test, if 2 people taking on the same day is not necessarily going to get the same questions, because it's a testing style that as you answer the questions correctly, they get harder and harder and harder until you start failing. And if you fail a question, it gets easier and easier and easier. But if you fail too much, you don't pass. And if you're doing very well, you pass in 75 for the RN. You pass in 75 questions. I passed in 75 questions. And if you do very poorly, you can get up to, I think it's 245. Don't quote me on the number. The max number might be 265. But whether you pass in 75 or 265, you get your license. So it doesn't matter whether you did it quick. I mean, those who didn't pass in 75, and you could fail in 75, by the way. But that's where it's nerve-wracking. But when it comes to doula certification, there is no governing body. There's organizations, there's alliances, there's the National End of Life Association, which I strongly encourage everyone join. There's the International Doula End of Life Association, where if you want to join that, join. But there's no governing body that says to be certified, here's the exact standard everybody has to meet. That doesn't exist. So part of the issue with the industry is one course to become a death doula is $3,000. Another course is $800. Another course $600. Another course $5,000. and so on and so forth. And I strongly believe that each and every person who's running a course is adding value for the price. I don't always agree with some of the comparatives. Like I've heard comparatives, well, in nursing school, you would pay X, Y, Z. The difference is there's huge difference for anyone who uses that comparison. Nursing school, again, governing body, nursing school is medical training. End of life doula is non-medical professional. So first off, you're comparing a medical professional to a non-medical professional. Second of all, you're comparing a bachelor degree to a certification. And thirdly, you're comparing something that is standard throughout all the United States, standard through all the provinces in Canada, standard all over Europe. There are standards, and with doula certifications, there's not. So I would encourage those who are comparing the value of their course, please, please, me to you, don't compare it to nursing school. Please. You want to compare it to a CNA certification, you're getting closer to the mark. Don't compare it to nursing school. My opinion only, which you could throw away. But I do believe, regardless of what the people are charging, I do believe that there's value being added. So please don't mistake what I'm saying as trying to rip somebody apart for what they're charging. I am not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that there's no governing body. People are charging different rates for the certification, and certification from one school doesn't necessarily match certification from another school. So, where does that lead people like myself, who is medically trained, a type of hospice nurse who dared to be different in hospice, meaning that I would push the limit for how long? Like I would be, like the webinar I went today, the nurse said that she would see her patients once a week for an hour. I would see some of my patients 7 days a week for an hour and a half. I'm not, and I want to be very clear, I'm not saying I'm better. I'm different. I'm not saying I'm better. But even then, doulas do more. And that was the bottom line. Doulas do more. And that's going to always be correct. I should say most of the time going to be correct. So what do you do if there's somebody like me who already has the death and dying training, and somebody like me, then in my case, I've already run a business for 18 years. I already know business and marketing. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm not trying to grade myself, but I just need the certification. What about somebody else that maybe they don't have the business knowledge? And that's where courses like the webinar that I was at tonight, where it was close to $3,000, there was so much value being added. That's where I do believe that a lot of these people, they're charging appropriately. I don't like some of the comparatives, but I do believe that the end price is fair for what they're giving, because a lot of what they're including is the business plan, the marketing plan, the how do you do connections, and so on and so forth. They're adding a lot of value in that degree. But what if you just need the bare bones certification? And that's where, and I'll include a link in the description below. But you join the National End of Life Alliance for $50. They do micro certifications, and they have an excellent page that explains why they do what they do. You can get a micro certification to be an end of life doula, which is the equivalent of being certified, for $115. So for $165, you're certified. I'll leave it that. So here, part of what everybody is sharing, getting back to the presentation, is that if you're an end of life doula, what you should be doing in your local community for free or unbelievably low cost, I recommend free, is give workshops, seminars, whatever wording you want to use, on helping somebody in your community, helping groups of people, I should say somebody. You want to have as many people as possible invited, where you're going to teach them about death and dying to remove the fear. So you should be giving free presentations on death and dying. Some people call it, good life, good death. Mine is, I'm going to be talking about I don't know if I'm going to keep understanding the end of life journey. That's just segment one. I'm still working through the draft of this, but my goal is to demystify death. One of the things that was very well done today. Today's webinar, for the most part, other than people argue, like there was some debating on the end on the pitching, and I think in part because of the comparatives, my opinion only, but the value was there. And one of the key points was the number one fear that people have is of dying, but it's something that's guaranteed to happen. So we should be teaching about it. We should be openly talking about it. Death is nothing to fear. So, introduce yourself. Why is it, why you shouldn't be, you know, we need to talk about this, remove the fear. So, it's a continuum. The moment we're conceived in the womb, we actually start dying the moment we're conceived. Our cells are going through regeneration, birth and death, and uh, and we start dying. The historical perspectives of death. I almost did cultural and historical, but I'm trying to keep my presentation to 90 minutes. I have this broken down into 30-minute segments. It's 25 minutes of 5-minute break, 25 minutes of 5-minute break, 25 minutes of 5-minute break. The 5-minute breaks times 3 includes questions and answers. The historical perspectives, I want to go over the history of prior to the current century and just 100 years past. Most people were dying at home. It was very common to die at home. Now we're so afraid of death, we want our loved ones dying in the hospital. And I can tell you, being hospital trained, hospital staff are not trained on keeping somebody comfortable. They're not. I wasn't. We're trained to rescue who can be rescued, and some of the rescue procedures are very, very violent. CPR is a very violent procedure. We don't focus on comfort. Comfort is a second thought. In fact, some of the nurses, and this is what I was praying when I was in Harrisburg Hospital, I don't want to become jaded. They want their pain medication again. They have Mrs. Princess and blah, 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 and they would badmouth them. It's like, I don't want to be that nurse ever. So the common fears is that death is painful and death is awful to look at. And so it's not. Death is not painful. Dying is not painful. It's the disease process. I still remember Richard, one of my end of life patients, who did not need a single pain medication during the entire dying process. Nothing. And then I've had others, pancreatic cancer, 40 milligrams of morphine an hour. Everybody's different. I'm not going to go again with the speech. Why we struggle. A good death is that they're comfortable. The patient defines what's comfortable, or the power of attorney. We want to have dignity and their choices respected. We have common disease trajectories. The sudden death, that's your traumatic accident, motor vehicle accident, just heart attack. You have terminal illness. That's going to be most of your cancer patients, where they're going to continue until their body can't compensate anymore, and then it's rather rapid. You have your organ failure, which is your heart failure or COPD, your exacerbations in and out of the hospital and so on. And you have your frailty, which is your neurogenic, your different types of dementia are going to go through that. So again, not trying to do the speech here for the presentation, but general timeline when we're talking about end of life. Just so you know, with doulas, there's no prognosis limit. So if you can get in there for a year before they die, 2 years before they die, that's a wonderful thing to be involved in that. But what do you expect when they are in that 6-month window? What should you be observing and seeing? So going over that. First Q&A. Then we're getting into our second segment. Dying process. You have the transitioning phase, seconds to several weeks. This is one piece of the training. I didn't pipe in the chat because I didn't want to get into an argument. The presenter was saying seconds to hours or a day or two. Sorry, current 2025, 2024, current. I've had patients take a month to transition, and they are transitioning. So it can take a long time. Actively dying, I still remember my patient, comatose, active dying December 23rd, and I pronounced her January 9th the following year. No food and water in between. So emotional and behavioral changes that people are going to see. Uh, the top ones are going to be at the beginning, and when they get closer to the end of the transitioning is going to be that terminal restlessness and what it means. And then I actually broke that into its own slide just to go over that in a little bit more depth, because of all the phases, there's a couple phases of dying that gets to be traumatic for family. When their loved one loses the ability to walk, and so they're now bedbound. And yes, there's incontinence issues, but it's when they lose the ability to walk, when they lose their, and when they have terminal restlessness, when they lose the ability to swallow. Those are the top three, and there's more. There's comatose. But if you had to pick the top three, that would be my top three. And so I wanted to spend more time going over terminal restlessness, because if it's not properly managed, and the other part of it too is the hospice nurse. A good hospice nurse is going to be investigating, is it reversible? And I think I do have a spelling error on reversible. I have to go back and correct it. I'm like, gee, that doesn't look right. I'm not going to do it now to take your time. Uh, the physical signs of death, breathing is the biggest one, especially towards the end. Not everybody has modeling. There are temperature changes. There are typically some color changes. Go over what that means again to remove the fear. How do we provide comfort? At this point in time, when we get especially past the transitioning phase, a lot of families is, what do I do? And they feel helpless. So we want to give them things to do that are helpful. There's a lot of things that we can advise them to do. And most of these or I should say all of them, are considered non-medical, what a doula can do. Addressing pain, going over there's physical pain, emotional distress. I still remember my lung cancer patient wanted palliative sedation. We had the physical part well managed, and the emotional part, if we would have medicated more, would have been a catch-22. Medicated more, we would have palliative sedated, and then we would have ended up with the boundary where there was a level of, and this is where you get into the fine print, awake, alert, and she wanted just not awaking anymore. So, but that's its own case. But how pain is managed, and that's where you are working with healthcare providers. Q&A break. Third segment, this gets into hospice. My hope as I'm doing these workshops, and I encourage anyone who's going to be an end-of-life doula, network with your hospice providers. They're going to give you referrals and business. The closer you get with them, they're going to give you business, and you're going to help with them as well, because you're going to be out there in the community doing these presentations. So network with them. They may end up doing this segment for you, especially if you're having trouble, you're not comfortable doing public speaking. And I'm an introvert. The very first time I did public speaking, I still remember, I'm not going to get up and show you now, but my knees were doing this. And I still remember the one session where I was behind a pedestal that didn't cover my knees, and in the front, two people were literally laughing and pointing, his knees are shaking, which didn't help me. But you know what? I kept going, because this isn't about me, it was about them. But again, going over the philosophy, what it is and what it isn't, signs, benefits. I strongly believe get hospice involved as early as possible. Focusing on self-care. This is very important. And one of the reasons I put this in my presentation, I encourage you to put this in yours, is what we're doing with these free webinars. We're removing the stigma. The goal is to remove the stigma of death. And it's not going to happen in one presentation. The person who comes, you may do, let's say you do one a month. You may have a person coming once a quarter for a year before they become comfortable with you. You're building trust. And when you focus on the caregiver, you're building trust, because the people that are coming to your seminars, some of them may be potential patients, but the majority of them are going to be caregivers or friends of caregivers and family members. So the more that you demonstrate, compassion's a verb. You act it out. It's a verb. you act it out. So the more that you show compassion towards others, the more you become relatable, and you build that. So you're by going over how do you care for yourself while you're caring for your loved one. That's so important. And then, if as a side note, and this is something I'm still struggling with right now, is I'm thinking about, do I go ahead and order a number of my books, for example, for caregivers. I order a number of my books for caregivers, and as author copies, I get them just at printing cost plus shipping, and then just give them as like as a raffle. And so that's a cost from a perspective of doing business. And some of you may be saying, "Well, I'm not a book author and I can't order author copies. What could you do?" Well, you can print handouts. You can print handouts. I'm going to be having a handout, not just a handout of the presentation, but I created a handout today, and down the road, I might be sharing it freely. I haven't made that decision yet. I'm being honest and transparent with you, but I made it. I made a handout. I went through a couple of my books and just pulled out some of the bits and pieces in the presentation to put into a handout. So they'll get the presentation. Everybody will get the presentation and handout. But you could do that. Or you can go and get Gone From My Site, Barbara Karn's books, Gone From My Site. You can get those in bulk from her at a very reasonable price. Or maybe reach out to me. I can't promise you because I'd have to know what the picture might look like, but let's have a discussion. You might be saying, Peter, and by the way, I try to price these on Amazon as let me try to get it centered. Sorry, uh, as low as possible. So I try to price these as low as I can. These are my least royalty items out there. But let's say you go and you look at this and you say, Peter, I can't afford to buy 12 of these. Raffle out once a month. I can't afford to buy 12. But what can we do? And then what I would ask you probably is what are you looking for? And maybe I could do something where I'm buying the author copies, and maybe uh, finding something that's a difference where like you're paying the shipping cost, and then my cost for the author copies, which would be the print cost, so the shipping plus the print, and maybe something else just for me facilitating. I don't know. At the end of the day, and I can't promise this, I might go, gee, is there a way to do this where it's just pure cost? Because I am trying to support the community. I want to support my fellow doulas. I want to support my fellow hospice nurses. It's not about me um, building a retirement fund, so to speak. I want to be there to support each and every one of you as I'm able, but I also have to, for lack of better words, make ends meet. Like the Compassion Crossing website, I pay for that. I don't have a nonprofit. I'm looking at doing that May 1st, going to see if that's a possibility. But even then, you still have to get money in to pay the bills. But moving forward, finding meaning and peace. So one of the fears that came out of tonight's webinar, I just want to share with you. Well, do I have to do an all-night vigil? What if I can't spend more than 8 hours? And there's all these wonderful, valid questions. Well, as a death doula, you, sorry, can't see where the like I don't got like a defined area for the screen. You define what your services are for your offering for what you're comfortable with. So if you could only do an 8-hour vigil, that's what you tell the client. Transparency. So, but one of the things that I encourage every death doula to look at getting involved in, because it is relatively easy to do, is creating legacy projects. So that could be a photo album. It could be helping them write letters that will be mailed out at certain dates and times down the road, and helping them through that. So there's so much that you could do, not involving a medical background, not involving overnight, not involving pets, like allergies and other factors. There's so much that you could be doing to be helping and still be a death doula. Don't, if you feel like I want to get out there, I believe I can serve, I can bless people, uh, you can do it. If you're not sure of what you're capable of doing and you want to have a conversation, I'm not charging. Comment, ask your question. I'll do my best to answer. Uh, I mentioned this is look. Let's lift each other up as human beings, help each other grow and bloom. So, some closing thoughts, some key takeaways, and thank you. And then as you're giving these presentations, do look at, are there local funeral homes you can connect with? Are there crematoriums? Are there nursing homes? And you're going to build up a network, and you may evolve your presentation where they're giving pieces and you're giving pieces. And before you know it, you have a thriving business that you're blessing people. Now, in a future video, I'll go over what about if I don't want to charge? What about if I don't want to do this or that? Because as I am exploring this, and I will be writing a book on my journey, as I'm exploring this, I'm going to be sharing as freely as possible. Here's the trip. If you want to join me on this trip, wherever you're located, join me and we'll support one another and help one another bloom. Thank you for your time. That's it for today's discussion. If you're interested in becoming a death doula and you have any questions, I'm brand new at this. Let's learn together. Comment below. I'm going to be linking in about the National End of Life Alliance website. Please review their entire website if you're interested in becoming a death doula. I believe they're a very good resource for that. And we'll walk this journey together. Thank you for your time. God bless.